Pets Add Life, your guide to the latest in pet trends, products, and the joy of the human-animal bond, with Kristen Levine and Chris Bonafati, powered by the American Pet Products Association and DOGTV.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Pets Add Life podcast. I am Chris Bonafati, joined as always by the intelligent and illustrious Kristen Levine. Kristen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How long does it take you to come up with those two new adjectives that you use for my introduction each week?
It's actually funny. We were just talking about Chris's night think. Like, I'm a night thinker. And last night I thought of, we're recording 2 episodes today, and I thought of a few, and then this morning completely forgot them. Those were intelligent and illustrious is just what came out. It's easy because I am looking at you through a webcam, and so you're just a font of inspiration.
Oh, you're funny. Isn't it weird how the thoughts you have at night or like in the middle of the night or early in the morning always seem like they're brilliant, like you have a brilliant idea, and then once you wake up, take a shower, and like get your wits about you, you're like, that was the stupidest idea I've ever had.
That is just a regular occurrence in my life. It's just this cycle of innovation and self-doubt that continues to push me forward to ever expanding new heights. But yeah, I completely agree. There are some times though where I don't necessarily always sleep well, and sometimes I'll wake up and I'll let the cat get some water because she's thirsty, and I'll go downstairs and I'll help myself to a nice cool slice of American cheese right out of the refrigerator. And there's like this moment of clarity at like 3:30 in the morning that could strike where you're almost thoughtless, if that makes sense. Like your mind is just perfectly clear, like you've reached this meditative
because you're still
state.
kind of asleep, not like literally asleep.
Yeah, but you're not even like actively dreaming, you're just sort of existing, and I kind of find that nice. It's like a very me moment, right? Like there's nothing else going on, it's just me and my slice of American cheese.
Why American cheese?
It's delicious. I don't know what to tell you. I mean,
American cheese.
No, it's good. It's good. You can't knock it till you try it. Because everybody right now, if you're listening to this at home, go to your kitchen, grab a slice of American cheese, and enjoy.
It's not even real cheese.
So?
It's like Velveeta.
Speaking of real cheese, we've got a real great episode for you all where we're going to be talking to 2 amazing guests, sharing 2 great stories, recommending 2 products, and at the very end of the episode, we're going to answer 2 of your questions. So enough about the night thinking. Let's go ahead and get into story time.
Kristen and Chris present Story Time.
Okay, Chris, do you think about your stories in the middle of the night?
I do not, for I need the internet to find these. Unfortunately, okay. I don't have a treasure trove of happenings, but you know who does? The Associated Press, which is where I got this story. And, this is a really inspirational one. We've had some guests on the show in the past that talk about they're part of programs that try to keep pets with people who are struggling either financially or they're ill and in the hospital. Well, this is a guy named Simon Rubik in Colorado has started an organization called Positive Recovery. That is like the pun paw. And essentially, Simon had struggled with decades of alcoholism and drug addiction and finally decided to go to rehab. And the most difficult part was he ended up becoming separated from his dog. And for a while, his brother was taking care of the dog back at home. But then he had to leave. So like the future of this dog was up in the air. And that experience really inspired Simon to think, okay, like this sucks. Like there's no better way to put it. Like I'm at the lowest point in my life right now, and I'm having to think about thinking about giving up my dog. And we always talk about how it's just like that one constant through your life. They're always your best friend. They're never judgmental. So he was basically talking in this article about how most rehab centers in the United States don't let you bring pets. And that's his entire goal. He said, his quoted saying, if there's it basically came down to being able to take care of my dog or being able to take care of myself. And that's incredibly sad. So he's found a way to start some of these groups where if you can't bring your animal with you to your rehab facility, they will find people to foster them in the meantime. And they're also putting pressure and advocating the Colorado state legislature to start passing legislation that requires rehab centers to allow people with pets to bring them. I'm lucky enough that I've never suffered from anything like that, but I would imagine if I was ever there, I would want my pet to be there with me and go on that journey with me. So
absolutely.
A great story from Simon here, really showing what it means to struggle and be an animal lover and try to give back after experiencing something so profound.
Yeah. Good on you, Simon. That's awesome. I mean, pets have such healing powers for us. So that seems like, hopefully 10 years from now, it'll just be like nobody would ever believe that you couldn't have your pet with you in a rehab facility or in a situation where you're battling an illness.
Yep. All right. Well, on that cheery, happy, and delightful note.
Boy, it got sad real fast.
Kristen, give us a good one.
Okay. Well, mine has a similar feel to it. It's about the human benefits of fostering shelter animals. And I know earlier this year I had shared a report about a foster program for the elderly and how it was proven that fostering pets made the elderly people happier. So this one just kind of it's a similar study. The 131 foster caregivers from 5 different animal shelters across the U.S. participated in a study. And the study found that although the fostering the pets didn't noticeably enhance their mental well-being, although maybe it probably did, a lot of the caregivers reported self-perceived benefits in their overall quality of life with love, affection, and companionship from the foster animals. And the dog caregivers reported significantly higher emotional and social quality of life than the cat foster caregivers. So, obviously we know that the human animal bond is a real thing. But with so many homeless pets, I think it's just such an awesome opportunity to enhance your life, enhance your family's life, your children's life by committing to fostering a pet, even for a short period of time until that animal finds a forever home. And we all know that many times the fostering experience fails and you end up adopting that pet. And that's not such a bad thing. That's how we ended up with our little dog Tulip. But just another scientific study showing the benefits of people spending time with animals. So there you have it. I tried to pull us out of that little dip.
You did for a bit there. You did. Yeah. And, good on you for you found a study too. So you get to wear the science lab coat.
Oh, you're going to let me borrow it for the week.
Yeah. I still have to find, I swear I have a lab coat. Like I have this big box of costume stuff. I got to find for the next live show. I got to bring the lab coat. Yeah. And maybe like some big wig goggles. Professor Podcast.
Maybe a beaker.
Maybe a beaker.
Beyond the Leash, exploring the untold stories of pet passion and professionalism.
I'm really excited about this next guest. Tom Turcich is a motivational speaker, photographer, and the 10th person ever to walk around the world. After a personal tragedy struck him at the age of 17, Tom decided to dedicate his life to exploring the world on foot. An adventure that spanned 7 years and 28,000 miles across 6 continents and 38 countries. His faithful companion, a dog named Savannah, joined him for the journey, making them the first man-dog duo to ever achieve such a feat. That is so cool. Now, throughout his trek, Tom experienced the extremes of humanity and nature, from life-threatening encounters to acts of incredible kindness. His story, captured in his memoir, The World Walk, is a testament to resilience, adventure, and the deep connection between man and his best friend. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. I love this story. What was the most unexpected lesson you learned during this 7-year journey with your dog around the world?
I'd say the most unexpected one was just how small we all are. I think it really bears out when you see the world on foot, one step at a time, how much everyone and our lives are influenced by geography that you're born into, the politics, the family you're born into. And it really drives home just that we are very tiny. And I think seeing the world on foot also, you see the cities are concentrated into these little areas, and then in between them are these big expanses of still pretty untouched nature.
That's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, your step count must have been ridiculous. And I'm over here. There's some days where I rack up like work from home days, and I'm racking up like 45 steps. So I don't think I'm any further away from what you were able to achieve. But I think what's most not necessarily impressive, but awesome about your story in particular is that you did this walk with Savannah. So I would imagine that you guys have a very unique bond after a trip like that.
Yeah, I would say unique is the correct word there. She's the first dog to walk around the world. So in turn, I'm the first person to walk around the world with a dog. Mm-hmm. And I adopted her in Austin, Texas after 4 months of walking and camping in strange places and being on my own and realizing how nice it would be to have a dog that could listen while I was sleeping. And so really I got her initially just for the original reason we paired up with dogs, which was to awake me at night if something was coming. And I would give her some food and protection myself. But as time went on and we spent every minute of every day together, and we're navigating these cities in Central America that I didn't yet fully understand, and then we're walking through the deserts of Peru and Chile and over the mountains of the Andes and then into Europe and North Africa and everywhere else, and going through all these challenges and changes together. We were together through everything, and we were each other's only constant through this endless barrage of change. And so I really relied on her like nothing else. And we'd have these really intense days sometimes, or these really boring days, say in the deserts. And at the end of every day, it was me and her sitting side by side, taking it in. And I was thinking this morning just how many like truly perfect moments that we shared together.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, as extreme as your situation was, it's actually kind of cool to hear how similar it is to just everybody with their pet. Everything around you changes, but that one being that's by your side, that's going to be a constant through all the changes that life throws at you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the greatest things about dogs is that you open the door and they are hyped to see you like nothing else. And when you're ready to go for a walk, like I was, they are ready to go for a walk.
They're ready to go for a walk. Yeah.
You're ready to
Tom, was
crash
she
into the AC. They're ready for that too.
I can imagine that she probably kept you motivated. Did you find that you had to keep her motivated, or was she just ready to go every morning?
She was ready to go every morning. In the first month after I adopted her, well, the first month really was getting vaccinations and getting the parvo vax and all that. And then after that, our first month of walking together, she was in this baby carriage that I pushed a lot of the time with all my things in it because she was so tiny and she wasn't leash trained. And so gradually I got her up to speed. And by the time we reached Mexico, she was walking the full 24 miles a day with me. And she kind of decided on her own. I would, take her out for an hour, 2 hours and train her and walk. But as we reached Mexico, she jumped out of the cart and was like, I'm not going back in there. We're walking every day. And so she was relentless. I remember like 2 years in or so when we were in these stretches of Peru and Chile in the desert for months, we would sometimes do 30, 36 miles a day. And at the end of the day, I would be exhausted. I'd be on the tarp, laid out somewhere, just feeling my legs throb in my ears. And Savannah would come up with a little bottle cap or a stick or something and her tail wagging and want to play. So she had truly endless energy. I mean, she was ready to go all the time, whenever. As soon as I picked up that leash, she was ready to go. And, you know, it was just a thing of, this was her whole life. This is all she ever did, is from 4 months on, 5 months on, whatever, however old she was. This is the only life she knew, was that we're going to get up and we're going to walk 8 hours a day, and then we're going to go find somewhere to camp.
That's absolutely incredible. And, you know, now that you've settled back down, putting some roots down back to, you know, maybe a more traditional lifestyle, we'll call it. What's that transition been like for both you and Savannah? I could imagine the dog getting a little confused as to why you're not nomadic anymore.
Yeah, I think it came at a good time for both of us, because it was 7 years on the road that we spent together.
Yeah.
And Savannah was the same age as the walk. So she, when we finished, was kind of like, all right, this is probably a good time for retirement. But when we did actually stop, we were both just totally restless. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. We moved out to Seattle to be with my girlfriend, and I was working on this memoir. So I'm working from home basically, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. So Savannah and I would still walk like 4 hours every day, because I just didn't know what to do. And Savannah would sit by the door like, you know, when are we going to go do something? But gradually, you know, we both settled in a little bit better, and Sav really found her spot on the sofa, and we'd go for the morning walk, maybe a little afternoon walk, an evening walk. We'd still do probably 3 walks a day, just out of that restlessness and this kind of guilt that I felt to always be providing for Savannah, providing some adventure for Savannah. But yeah, it was a difficult transition at first, for sure.
I'm sure. Well, Tom, what advice would you give to somebody that's considering, you know, a long-term trip, hike, or adventure with their dog? What advice would you
maybe
share
not
with them?
7 years around the world, but
Yeah,
like a
that's
starter
Start
distance
small.
of like maybe like a week-long hike or something like that.
Yeah, I might say, like, the younger the dog you could do it, the better. I think it's a great way to train a dog too, because again, you're just side by side with them all the time, and the training kind of happens naturally. Whereas if you're going into the office, if you're working, and then you come back and you feel like you have to apply this training really specifically to an hour or, you know, half an hour, really mindfully, it can be difficult to kind of change the behavior or get, you know, the dog to really connect with you. But if you can go for some long walks with a puppy, I think it's really beneficial to getting them to sync up with you and you syncing up with them and learning their behaviors. But if you're going with a dog that's a little bit older, let's say, you know, just watch their paws. Savannah's were like living stones, basically. She grew up on the road. She never had a problem with them. They were insanely strong. So I think it takes a little time. And then also, you know, you just watch like their thighs a little bit, like their shoulders. I think that's where Sav, as she got older, she would limp a little bit, you know, after the walk, and it would be from, you know, she'd get a little, I'd give her a little massage and she'd be feeling better. But yeah, I would say just do it. Dogs love walking and they love being out there with you. So, you know, I think anything that you can handle, the dog can handle. And take a break midday. If it's a very hot midday, I'd say that's a big thing, actually.
We talk
Savannah
about that all the time. Yeah, no reason.
Yeah,
to
Savannah
walk
told me that in
noon.
Costa Rica.
Exactly.
Where I, before, was just barreling through the heat. And then it sort of clicked at a certain point that, oh, this is not that fun for Savannah, who's in basically a down jacket. And it's
literally
not fun for me
can't
either.
sweat. Yeah, physically cannot sweat.
Yeah, so just listen to them and take a break midday.
That's great. I'm going to ask you a tough question here. Out of all the places that you have visited and seen, which may be your favorite? And then on top of that, any places in particular that were exceptionally dog friendly?
Yeah, actually a very easy question because
Okay.
I think of this I'm thinking this in Savannah's mind.
Okay.
In Savannah's mind, the best country was Kyrgyzstan by a mile, which is a little mountainous country in Central Asia. And we had 2 guides, where we had a guide and a horseman and 2 horses with all our things on it. And then we just walked these mountain valleys for 2 months, and Savannah was off leash the entire time, running from a yak to another shepherd dog to a yurt, living the best dog life you could possibly live. So Kyrgyzstan was basically heaven on earth for Savannah. And then beyond that, I would say America is pretty much by far the friendliest dog country. We're such a dog culture, and there's a lot of dog-friendly hotels. People have a lot of experience with dogs. There's not a lot of strays. There's good infrastructure. A lot of dogs are spayed and neutered. I would say America, by a pretty wide margin, is the friendliest dog country.
There we go.
That's fantastic. Kyrgyzstan, not the answer we would have expected.
I did not see that coming. It wasn't even on the list.
It took me about 25,000 miles to get to that point. So
I had to go through the Mind Palace to make sure you weren't pranking me and make sure that was a real place. Like, I had to just flip through some encyclopedic knowledge. I was like, okay, yeah, that is a real country. He's not just pulling my leg.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there.
Your story is fascinating. It's inspiring. And your book is called The World Walk. And I assume it's available wherever books are sold?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. Widely distributed published by Skyhorse, distributed by Simon & Schuster. Getting
Fantastic.
Pretty great reviews so far. And I think it's a great adventure story, especially between me and Savannah.
Fantastic. Well, pick it up, or it's a great gift idea too for the dog lover in your life. And thanks so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed hearing your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the other day I was looking back at some of my steps from Global Pet Expo. Mm-hmm. And over a 3-day period, I did like 32 miles indoors. Yeah. And it felt like my knee was going to explode. I was sore. I was miserable. I was complaining about it a lot.
Right.
And then there's guys like Tom who were like, yeah, for 7 years, I walked a marathon every day with my dog. It was great. Sometimes I'll just step out and go for a 5-hour walk nowadays. And I'm sitting over here, I'm sweating.
I know.
Wondering how it's even possible.
Really puts things in perspective. Obviously, that's an extreme adventure, but what a great way to bond with a dog, even on short walks. Even a short walk is a great way to bond with your dog.
Yeah, and you really do only get one life, right? Mm-hmm. And so having that type of adventure under your belt now, he never has to do it again. Though I have a feeling there may be a sequel walk coming. I don't know. I'm not to speak for Tom, but I just have a feeling that at some point there's going to be a sequel walk.
Stay tuned.
Okay, and joining us now is Dr. Roger Mugford, a renowned animal psychologist widely regarded as Britain's leading expert in the field of animal behavior. With a distinguished academic background, including a Bachelor of Science in Zoology and Psychology and a Doctor of Philosophy degree from the University of Hull, Dr. Mugford has dedicated his career to understanding and improving the behavior of animals. He is the founder of the Animal Behavior Center, which has become a leading authority in behavioral therapy for pets. Over his career, Dr. Mugford has treated over 50,000 animals, has authored several influential books on dog training and behavior, including The Perfect Dog. He's also the inventor of the Halti Headcollar and other innovative training aids, which you're probably all using and not even realizing, which are distributed by his company, The Company of Animals. Thank you so much. What an impressive resume, right off the bat. So many things and a long, illustrious career. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Mugford.
I've been plowing this furrow for 44 years, and I recently retired from being the CEO, the head of my company. But the greatest pleasure is that I have a talented vet daughter who's taken over the chairmanship of the company. So I can do a lot of other things for pets and with pets on behalf of pets and on behalf of society, because I come to this theme of dogs in society from the human standpoint. Or originally, I trained as a human psychologist. And I actually worked in a psychiatric hospital for a couple of years before I went on to a career with animals. And it affected me greatly. And I saw the unhappiness and loneliness of institutionalized people and the way in which their lives blossomed as soon as you introduce an animal, and it didn't have to be something cultured like a dog or a cat. It could be a wild animal, a sight of a squirrel, a sight of singing birds. So animals are really important for human happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say that is sort of what inspired you to make that transition from, human psychology into animal psychology, was sort of that sparkling moment where you realized how powerful the human-animal bond is?
It really, really is. I spent time in the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and I saw lonely people living on the streets, and their only possession was their dog, which was part of their begging routine. Or down in Baltimore, people living in really poor circumstances. We're talking about the 1960s, 70s. That's how old I am, by the way. And within those communities, the vibrant role of dogs in those communities. So not just posh gits like me, but people who are down on their uppers or unluckier in life, and so pets as therapy is a really big theme. And now I'm retired from running my company, I'm able to spend more time dealing with charities and causes that I profoundly believe are so important to human happiness.
Well, Dr. Mugford, you've been doing this for a long time. What would you say? Can you just give us a snapshot of the things that have changed the most in terms of how we think about animal behavior and training?
Thank you. Well, first of all, there are far fewer horrible stories about the diseases you get from dogs or from pregnant ladies from cats.
Yeah.
It's there are far more good news stories, and I used to work for a little company called Mars, who have a rather large undertaking.
Tiny little company, yeah.
I was their psychologist, animal behaviorist, and I ran if you like, a good news story, looking into research into the benefits of pets for people, and there are multiple. It's a long list. So I started with elderly people living in an institute, in homes, and just the companionship of a little bird called a budgerigar that is more common in Europe than in America, and of course dogs. When you look into why people keep dogs, it is for those benefits. It's not because of the way they look or the way they defecate or the way that they cause arguments with the neighbors. It's none of that. It's this animal companionship. But when you ask people, what would you do when Rover, your present dog, dies? And 10% of people, of dog owners, said that they wouldn't replace Rover because he's been such a pain in the ass. That dog, he ripped up my mail. I got no visitors. I couldn't have my grandchildren around. He just pulled on the lead and he broke my leg here and dragged me into traffic. So behavioral problems were a really big issue and a negative issue. And that was about 10% of dog owners in the UK. And I think it's an even higher statistic in the US. So not all dog-human relationships are happy. Interestingly, amongst cat owners, the same question, only 2% of cat owners are unhappy. So cats have a higher success rate, which really annoys me. I am a cat lover and owner, or a cat owns me. But
there we go.
Right.
But dog owners are broadly successful, but a lot of them are really a nuisance. Yeah. And in the UK, and Holland and most of Europe, we keep sheep. Farmers are integrated with villages, and so people have dogs in the villages as pets, and then they go out and chase and kill the sheep. And so sheep chasing is a big issue over here, and so on and so on. So that correcting or dealing with these issues was my challenge when I left Mars to begin this consultancy. And I was one of the first in the field. There were a number of really good people who were working in the US at the same time. So, and the first thing that struck me is the bizarre way in which people control their pets.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't treat a horse with something like this. Excuse me. This is a spike collar. Yes, you can still buy it at your local pet store in America. You can't in the UK. These have been banned in the UK virtually. But then, perhaps not so horrible, but pretty useless piece of junk here. I've crafted halters for specific animals, and et voila, came the Halti. So, and the Halti really caught the imagination of dog trainers who said, "You're a cheat. You got to train dogs so that they respect you, and they don't pull because you tell them not to pull, and you throw things at them, and you scream at them, and show them you're the boss." And right, and that sort of attitude is, well, it's, you still find some trainers with that sort of attitude. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're a declining breed, thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
So, Roger, you were sort of hinting at this already, and I feel like I know where you're going to land on this question based on some of the stuff we've already been talking about. But there's an ongoing debate in dog training and dog behavior about aversive versus positive reinforcement training methods. So can you talk a little bit about where you land on that and maybe some of the findings you've had throughout your career that support it?
I'm going to illustrate it with my little dog here, who's called Shadow. Why is she called Shadow? Because she follows me everywhere. Come on, Shadow, come on.
Shadow. Hi,
Shadow. Come on your feet. So Shadow is out of a horrible cage with 6 dogs in South Korea, and she will do anything for food. And about most dogs, but not all dogs, but most dogs will do anything for food. So if you read old books like The Monks of Skeet Dog Trainers and things like that, they frown on them because they think that if you spoil dogs with treats, then you undermine their respectful relationship that they should have with you. Well, that is so much balderdash, isn't it, really? And it is one of the strongest driving forces. And of course, not just for dogs, it is for humans. And if I want to round up my cattle, I don't send a dog around them. I just rattle a bucket with some food and they all come running.
Sure.
And sometimes they knock me over, they're so enthusiastic. So I'm a balanced dog trainer, which is sometimes associated with some bad meaning amongst the dog training fraternity. By balanced, I mean that I would never use something like that. I would never use a stick. But I know that changes in my voice can turn to negative or they can be positive, so in that respect, I can use my voice as a positive reward system or as something that is aversive. And sometimes the dogs do outrageous things like rolling in fox shit and even worse, trying to attack some little old lady or a passing car. And so in those occasions, and they're usually highly sound sensitive dogs like border collies with the working breeds of dogs. And for those, I invented this. And this amazing little system is just and I've been using that system as an aversive to interrupt unwanted behavior. And it began because I was once attacked by a bulldog who was tied to a fix in the floor, and he attacked everything, and he even put his head through the door when he wanted to kill and attack a mailman, a postman. So he really hated people, and his collar broke, and he came at me, and I just happened to have this 30 kilo gas cylinder fire extinguisher just conveniently in my pocket, and I interrupted it, and he stopped.
Right.
And the change was so dramatic. And this is a dog who rehearsed this technique of attacking anyone who came into his owner's house. And that shows the profound effect of well-timed, appropriate punishment. Now, by appropriate, I do not mean hitting dogs or doing anything seriously aversive. But we evolved this sound training system from Rogers to this little product, and this is a product advertisement, ladies and gentlemen. This is called a pet corrector, which you can buy at your local pet store. We've sold.
Dr. Mugford, I have the pet corrector.
Do you really?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It's a terrific device. And I also wanted to talk to you about, there it is, the pet corrector.
I can't use it because my dogs are terrified of it. I wouldn't dream of using it anyway.
It's too much for them. It's a little too much for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just to get their attention when that's appropriate.
Yeah.
But talk to us about your creation of the Halti and how that ultimately led to really a revolution in the way people are training dogs.
Yeah. Well, it was war on dog trainers on both sides of the Atlantic because of this outmoded stuff. There were articles on the appropriate type of neck collar and having it really high where it put pressure upon the auditory meatus, which is these sort of sensitive bones at the back of a dog's ear. And it just seemed awful, really. So I told you that I was really a farmer background and so crafted head collars for all sorts of animals, head shapes. And so I made the first Halti, which looked not a lot like this because it had lots of rings and bits and pieces. And I've refined the design and changed the proportions. So it now fits virtually all breeds and types of dogs because obviously dogs vary so much in their head shape. Halti shouldn't be for every dog and not all of its life. It's for young dogs, usually Labradors and pulley sort of go-go dogs. They've been to puppy chow classes, they've been well trained, they've been trained on a slack lead, as they should be, and they won't need a head collar. But there are some that never learn those lessons or they didn't have the benefit of that type of training from their puppy trainer. So those animals are going to be a disaster for life. And in a study in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, something like 20% of all hospital entries of people over 65 were because they were pulled over by their dog and they had, broken hips and that sort of thing. So dogs that pull owners are really a danger to their owners and especially to themselves. And you get all sorts of pressure damage to the neck. The delicate carotid arteries are here. The esophagus is there. It's quite soft tissue. I would always say, try it on yourself. Get a piece of rope and...
Right. But the Halti puts the pressure on the bridge of the nose?
Well, not pressure. There is another design of head collar, which I won't mention, which does put pressure. But this is purely a simple steering action. It's just left, right, left, right, left, right. And it should be used on a slack lead. And I'm a big believer in 2 points of contact. So one on the head collar and the other on a regular collar. So I sort of introduced the concept of what I colloquially known as the European double-ended lead, which are at least 6 feet long. We make everything metric here, so they're 2 meters long. I'm pleased to say, even in American pet stores, that there are not so many spike collars and choke chains sold, and they're invisible in the UK, thank goodness. And in the rest of Europe, it's a declining situation. So the message has really caught on, and that's been such a big pleasure for me to see this change in animal handling, because training dogs isn't all about dogs being sort of superstars and it is about just having a happy relationship with their owner, and so people here do a lot of agility training and a lot of scent work, a lot of gun dog work and so on, and these are all very impressive dogs, but most people just want to take the dog for a walk and have it come back when they release it, and those are my people. That's I'm there to serve those people.
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Mugford, you've been prolific in creating the most amazing training tools and, ways to manage our pets' behavior in positive ways. You mentioned earlier, before we were recording, that you had retired as head of your company. What are you focused on today?
Well, I've always been a cattle farmer. So I got a horse farm. I got about 60 cattle here. And they sort of keep me busy, but I'm going electric. I drive an EV electric car, and I'm turning over about 30 acres to a solar farm, and I charge EVs, electric vehicles, from my solar power. So that's a big investment and activity. So I just planted 4,000 trees, mostly oak trees, but all over the place, all over my farm. So we're going to green, 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 because would you believe the planet is in a state of distress? So we got to do something good for the planet. So that's my driving force. I'm still inventing. One of my latest inventions is a translucent muzzle. So muzzles that look like that are scary. This is called an invisible muzzle. So the animal that's wearing this is not, it's a scary dog. Not all dogs. I'm a big defender of, pit bulls and all the breeds that get, if you like, criminalized as being bad dogs. And there is no such thing as a bad dog. And
so true.
So, if a dog does have aggressive tendencies, and it could be a Chihuahua or it could be an XL bully, then give it a chance. Give it a chance to be retrained. But meanwhile, make it safe by wearing a nice muzzle, and that's called the Baskerville muzzle, which is another of my big inventions. But we're working on better feeding systems, better treat systems for dogs, refining some of the techniques of clicker training. I'm a big believer in clicker training, but can we use voice and snaps of fingers rather than that? Really getting people into doing more exciting, exotic things with their dogs, not just being what we call couch potatoes, just having a boring life at home. I'm a big, over there you can see a puppod. So animal cognition, and I've seen one of your broadcasts about the clever things that dogs can do. I'm a scientific advisor to medical detection dogs, and we can train dogs to particular odors associated with particular illnesses using this sort of semi-automated system. So Puppod is an amazing canine cognition exploration tool, and you can buy them in America from the puppod.com, so I'm one of the backers of anything that enriches, makes the life of dogs more interesting, more exciting, and this Puppod system is one of the most impressive.
Dr. Mugford, when you retire, you're supposed to kind of relax and stop doing. You just listed like 12 things you're doing, and I'm over here, and I'm like, all right, what do I have going on? Well, I record this podcast, and I suppose that's keeping me busy. You're absolutely, you're an amazing person, an inspiration to us all. We are unfortunately out of time here. But genuinely, you're an inspiration to the entire industry. Thank you for everything that you've done in moving the way we treat our animals forward. All of the great products that you've invented that have helped so many families and their animals. So from the bottom of the PAL podcast heart to you over there in the UK, thank you.
I'm going to be one of your keenest followers from now on. Thank you, Christine.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Pets add life.
Wow. Well, Dr. Mugford didn't have much to say, did he?
No, it was really hard to get it out of him. I think an extensive career like that, and I mean, I was really jabbing him in our little post-interview breakdown there about his retirement being more busy than my current life. It's wild, everything that he's involved with, and if you've trained a dog or read something online about, positive reinforcement, or own some of these products from the company of animals or other products that have been inspired by it, your life has been touched by Dr. Mugford. So he's got an incredible reach across a ridiculously long and laureled career.
Right. He does. And you know what? The biggest aha for me when we were talking to him is when he talked about when he was younger on the farm, how he created a halter to lead his calf around the pasture.
Yeah.
And, I realized, to be able to work with such large animals and to control large animals, you can't use force because they're so much bigger and stronger than we are. So it's just really brilliant how he used the way that he was, what he'd learned from working on the farm to how to, get dogs to walk on a leash and not pull and things like that. So pretty cool.
Well, it's interesting too, just like colloquially and language that we've used in English, with farm animals, we say animal husbandry. But with pets, we say pet ownership. I just think that's like a little interesting,
that is interesting
little thing there where, Roger was inspired by the way they treated the farm animals that can tend to be more stubborn. And that led him to change the way he treated his pet. And I think that's awesome. The product of the week. All right, it's that time. It's time for the product of the week. And I gave my story first. So, Kristen, I'm going to volunteer you to go first.
Volunteer. Okay, no problem. This one's kind of fun. I discovered this on the internet. It's by a company called Woof, and it's called the Popsicle. And what it is it's this round rubber ball kind of toy that you unscrew and you pop this treat into it that's like shaped like a ball. And I'm not really sure why they call it a popsicle because it's not really frozen. Although they do say that you can replace the treats that come with the popsicle with your own treat. So I guess you could place a frozen like ball in there. But they come in pretty colors. They come in small, medium, and large. And this is just another one of those awesome toy, like, I guess it's kind of like a puzzle toy because the dog has to lick the treat out of the center of the ball and they can't get the ball up. Hopefully they can't get the ball apart. So they claim.
They can. Then you have a really smart dog with likely opposable thumbs.
Right. But they say that it's great for long-lasting distraction for your dog. It's supposed to last up to 30 minutes per use. I'd like to test that out. But I think it's really cool. And it's it's machine or dishwasher safe. So you can just unscrew it after your dog's finished, wash it in the dishwasher. And then you can pop different types of treats in there if you choose to. Otherwise, they do sell the refill pops, which they actually look pretty yummy. So that is my product of the week. And I don't even, here, $19.99. So not a bad price for a 30-minute distraction every day.
Sounds great. It's actually funny. I was doing research too for my product, and I think I saw something similar, but I went a different direction. We're all lucky. We're all lucky. I did go an entirely different direction. So I'm talking about a brand here. We see this question a lot when we look at our sheet of questions. People came in about taking care of their dog's teeth. And one interesting thing about dental health for both humans and animals is a lot of it's genetics. Some dogs, you straight up don't have to do anything. They've just got naturally healthy teeth. And some dogs you have to pay particularly close attention to. Your vet will be able to guide you in that sense. But if your dog does require some human intervention for their teeth, this brand called OxyFresh makes a great line of products. So they've got a water additive that you could add into the dog's water that's going to help remineralize their teeth. They've got, and this is really what I want to talk about, they've got pet toothpaste and these finger brushes. So you literally put one on your finger with a little bit of this, I'm pretty sure it's like chicken flavored toothpaste.
Yum.
You go in there and you could scrub it. And it's just so much easier than trying to use a human toothbrush or something like that. And then if your dog really doesn't like you touching their teeth, they make a line of toys as well. That are sort of made out of that hard plastic. They're more spiny. They'll basically act like dental floss for dogs. So they've got a great website. It's going to be in the show notes. It's called OxyFresh. All sorts of great stuff offered at very reasonable prices. So whatever you feel like you need, you just get this question all the time. How do I take care of my dog's teeth? How do I take care of my dog's teeth? This is a great line of products to start with. But as always, talk to your vet first. See if this is even necessary. And if it is, check out OxyFresh. You might find something good. Keep those pearly whites pearly white. Q&As. All right, folks. It's time for our favorite segment of the show. That's right. We're going to answer 2 questions that some of our wonderful listeners submitted. And hey, if you're listening to this and going, I've got a question for Chris and Kristen, you're in luck. You could submit your questions over at petsaddlife.org/podcast. Scroll on down to the bottom of the page. You'll see a form to submit your question. Or if you're feeling as brave as Savannah the dog on a 7-year-long walk, you can record a voice memo and you may hear your question played live on the show. But without further ado, question number 2 on our little sheet over here of wonderful questions from wonderful people is from Daniel in Austin, Texas. And Daniel asks, I've heard that some dogs can develop anxiety around certain triggers like thunderstorms or car rides. What are some of the most effective techniques for helping a dog manage and overcome these anxieties?
Great questions, Daniel. Thank you for submitting it. I just saw something come across my inbox, I think it was yesterday, from a veterinary behaviorist that I worked with in the past. And in the email, it said 50% of dogs have noise phobia or will develop noise phobia. So thunderstorms, fireworks, even, if you live in the city, even traffic noises, sirens, construction, there are a lot of different noises, loud noises that dogs can become fearful of. And I think the challenge is, if your dog is a puppy, you can do some desensitizing to some of these noises, like play recorded sounds of thunder or fireworks at a low volume and associate it with a positive treat or like a positive reward, or, just get excited and know it's make your dog associate noises with fun, or at least just not scary. But if your dog is past the puppy stages and has already developed those fears, it's really going to be more about managing. It's very difficult once a dog has developed a noise phobia to cure them of it, but that doesn't mean you can't manage it. There are so many calming products on the market, everything from calming chews to anxiety wraps to even puzzle toys that kind of help distract an animal or get their brain exercise. So you really kind of have to start experimenting. And also it's very important to talk to your vet as soon as you notice those symptoms, because your vet can help you with either, if it's severe enough, medication, or with some behavior modification techniques that you can use to, again, manage that situation. Because if you leave it untreated, it typically gets worse as your dog ages. As far as car rides, I forget the statistic, but it's something like a third of dogs have motion sickness in the car. So the anxiety that you're seeing, Daniel, could be because your dog is, getting motion sickness in the car. And maybe, obviously when she sees the car, when you say, let's go for a car ride, she's thinking, oh, crap. But there are medications for, just like we can take Dramamine, there's a medication called Serenia that your vet can prescribe if your dog is showing signs of motion sickness. So, and if it's just an anxiety about car rides, then maybe starting off with really short trips around the block, again, associating that trip with a positive treat, positive experience, and then gradually lengthening those trips as your dog feels more comfortable. So,
that's a great answer, Kristen. Very thorough.
Well, thank you. I've had dogs with both anxieties, noise and car rides. So I've had the experience.
So you're an expert.
I'm an expert on that.
There we go. That's why we have you on the show, because you're an expert. I wonder why they have me.
Oh, Chris, you are an expert as well. And I have a question for you now.
Okay.
And this is from Emma in Seattle, Washington. Emma wants to know if you can feed your dog American cheese.
I actually don't think dogs are supposed to have dairy. Cats can have a very limited amount of dairy, but with the American cheese, the danger is the salt. And animals shouldn't be having that much salt. But
that's not really the question. I'm kidding.
My opinion on human treats like that for animals is they could always have a little teeny tiny taste.
Teeny tiny. Okay.
Tiny taste.
But seriously now, Emma would like to know, she says, my dog seems to be overly protective of me when we go on walks. She often barks or lunges at other dogs and people. What steps can I take to help him feel more secure and reduce this reactive behavior?
That is a heck of a question. And while I may not be an animal behavior specialist, I do play one on TV. So Emma, you're in luck. I think there's kind of two tacks you could take with this. The first is the dog may be protective of you because it views itself as like the leader of the pack. So you may need to just take a more dominant approach. Don't let the dog walk ahead of you. Make sure you're walking like maybe even slightly ahead of it and keep it on a shorter leash. But you could also train a quiet or shush command. And the easiest way to do that is at home in a controlled environment. This isn't something they're going to learn while out on a walk where there's like a gazillion different variables that are going to affect the training. But you can just sort of leave the dog near an open window, and obviously something's going to come by eventually and they're going to start to bark. And when that happens, you, in your best dog command voice, which is stern but not anxious or angry, say quiet, wait for them to get quiet, and then reward them. And you just sort of continue that trend like you would training any trick, where you're going to wait. You're going to expect them to obey the command faster. You're going to wait to give them the treat, maybe 10 seconds of quiet before then. Then you're going to start to sporadically, give the treat every other time, every third time. And before you know it, your dog is going to respond to a quiet command. And so if you feel like you can't change the dynamic, the dog has fully come into like this alpha protective role, maybe you just teach it the quiet command. And dogs can learn this kind of stuff. They want to be able to communicate with us. Mm-hmm. And we've, developed all of these techniques to train them. So that, I think that would be my advice. I don't think you're ever really going to beat that habit out of a dog. And I know a few friends of mine who have dogs that are very territorial, very protective of, the house and their handlers and things like that, but respond really well to either a down or a shush command. And now they're not a problem at all. So there you go.
Yeah. Great advice. And just be persistent. And if you're struggling, you can always hire a dog trainer to help you out. There we go.
Yeah. And I learned all that from my script where I play an animal behavior specialist on TV. But thank you, Emma and Daniel, for your wonderful questions as always. And hey, that's a show. That's the end of a whole dang episode, Kristen. How about that?
I know. It just went by so quickly. It's so cool that we get to talk to some of the world's most respected and accomplished experts, pet experts, and also everyday people who've just accomplished these amazing adventures with their dogs. It's just, you never know who you're going to meet here on the Pets Ed Life podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great because not everybody's going to be like a Tom Turcich, right, and walk around the world. But there are a gazillion million Emmas and Daniels who achieve things that they didn't think were possible with their animals just through research and discipline and sometimes adamant stubbornness, which is my expertise. And I just want to say, those folks, you're just as amazing as the guy who walked around the world.
For sure.
Because, every small challenge can be a big one depending on your perspective. So for those of you out there conquering life's everyday obstacles, while it may not be the mountains of Kyrgyzstan, which I'm still, I'm going to look at a map later and find out exactly where that is. It's just as impressive, and we're just as proud of you. So anyway, folks, we will be here next week on Tuesday. I believe we're going to be celebrating National Cat Day next Tuesday, which is, it's right near Halloween. So if you're listening to this, get onto the gram. Let's see some of those cat costumes, folks. And I don't mean you in a cat costume.
No. The cat in a costume.
In a little costume.
Because we all know how much cats love to wear costumes. So
yeah, we put our Maine Coon growing up in a Batman costume once, and it was the grumpiest Batman in the world. Man, just sitting there like, I can't believe I'm doing this. So let's see those costumes. We'll see you back here in a week for National Cat Day / I think we're close to Halloween too. Wow. How about all that? And until then, be kind to yourself, be kind to your pets, and we will see you in 1 week's time.
Bye now.
Pets add life.